You know, I have never gotten as many messages about a car than this car since I've acquired it. Now, you would think that someone would call me and say, this is a $300,000 paint job on the Senna. Where did you get this car? But no, they're more interested in a Mustang than they are in a $2 million car. So this brings us to the review of the, or should I say, let me not say review because I don't think it would be fair, to the first impression of the Mustang GTD that just got delivered to me after a 7-month wait. So here we are with our first impression, not just of the car, but the actual driving pre-car being broken in of the Mustang GTD. Guys, welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks. And the first thing you'll notice about the Mustang GTD before anything else, this is not just the cheapest car here, but the largest car here by far. As a matter of fact, this car is larger than a Bugatti Chiron, and that is insane. Insane how big this thing is. In context, there's no car here, no hypercar here that is as large as this. And even the Chiron is smaller. This is almost the same size as a Phantom, which is insane. It's not as long, but it's equally as wide. Now, you know, we did this car in Ruby Star, which is a Porsche color, and we literally talked about this when the car was delivered. We did the mag wheels, we did the black calipers, we did the performance package for $50,000, which includes all this beautiful carbon, and more than anything else, we even did the interior in the two-tone with the little Raptor, F22 Raptor little jewelry, or so they call it, which still leaves us here. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about my first impression of the car, starting with the fact that not only is it that large, but that the interior really is beyond subpar for a 500K car. And we're going to talk about that in detail. Now, some disclosure again, when we go for a drive, I want to be clear that this car has not been broken in, it has less than 50 miles on the clock, and therefore it is not going to be the full driving experience. But if you missed it last time, I do want to point you to a cool few things about the car. The first one is how it goes down literally with a button to the track mode. And it, as you'll discover, it doesn't drive that well when that happens. But in addition to that, I want to point you to this terribly plastic interior, which we'll look at in detail during the drive, and the most incredible and cool gimmick about this car, this, which is the full suspension of the car, literally there at your disposal to look at any given time in case you feel really bored and want to look in the rear view and see that. So I'm going to show you this, which I think is pretty cool, is the car goes up and down, not just with the lift, but in track mode, similar to a Ford GT, and it makes it very exciting. And I just want to show you this, and then we're going to go out for a quick drive, okay? So cool, look at that, fully down, very exciting looking, and this is track mode. I think it's cool. I mean, you don't need any wrenches or anything and you're ready to go. Doesn't drive very comfortably on the street like this, but it sure as hell looks a lot cooler. So if you're ready, come on over, let's go for a drive, and let's experience the GTD for the first time together. You know, so as I told you earlier in this particular video, it's very hard, and part of the reason I was waiting to do this review was hoping that I would be able to break the car in first, which I've agreed that I'm just gonna do a review here knowing the car is not broken in first, and then basically do another one once it's broken in, because I am told there's a significant difference between the car broken in and not broken in. So I don't want to do a discredit to Ford for trying to build this car, which has gotten so many records and blah, 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 when really, maybe it does drive much better than I get to experience it today, since it only has 49 miles on the clock, you know, which is very, very low. So I'm going to give this till 400 or 500 miles, and we'll do a second video to really see how the car actually drives once it's actually broken in. But my argument with this car has not been the value of the car or how pretty it is on the outside, but has really been my biggest gripe with this has really been with, specifically with this interior. I don't understand this interior. I'm having a very hard time as a human being understanding like the actual dynamic of this. Like, and I'll tell you why. You have a lot of carbon here. Like, you have a lot of carbon all around. But then you have this weird textured plastic here for no reason at all. But then you have this beautiful carbon here. And then you have this F-22 Raptor, whatever the fuck, who cares, like button, which is like $8,000 for like 3 of these buttons, which are supposedly made from some fucking aerospace, no one gives a shit about thing. The problem that I have with this interior is, why do you take such a high dollar car and care and then turn around and basically put these very nice large screens surrounded by a plastic dashboard, plastic non-carbon crap here, and plastic here, cheap Alcantara here, and like call this like the best thing you could make for 500 fucking grand. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why the experience in the car is so irrelevant to someone at Ford who's looking at this saying, we got to convince people that have bought Ford GTs, we got to convince people that have bought all of these expensive cars, and we're trying to compete with the GT3 RS. And we take this whole approach to the GT3 RS being ugly on the outside seriously, and we built you a very good looking car on the outside. Now, given that this is bigger than even a Bugatti Chiron, I don't necessarily think it's the prettiest car in the world, but I do think that it's overly large and with a lot of presence, but it isn't as exciting, right? In design as some of these other things. But it has a lot of carbon, it has a Ford performance pack, the car is mainly carbon. It's a lot of good stuff, but then we get this interior, and that part I just don't understand. Let's talk about the driving today, because I've never gotten more requests from people to say, how does this thing drive? And like I said, it's not broken in. The first thing we do is we put these modes. It has these cool modes. So you go from normal to sport, and that makes a difference, significant driving difference, which is you drive it in sport mainly around, and the dash changes and everything kind of looks cool. You have these 2 big screens and everything works. I would say that the interface is really crappy, except for once you're on Android or Apple Play, whatever. It's really crappy otherwise. It's hard to see where the menus go, what goes next, and it's just really difficult to navigate. So I'm gonna assume that this is probably the same shit that they have in a Mustang, and I haven't driven a Mustang in 20 years. So I feel bad for all Mustang owners that gotta put up with this. I mean, the interior does have some cargo room. You have a middle console here, you have a glove box, something that a lot of new exotics don't have. So you have a few cool things, but the drive itself, you know, I tell you a couple of things that I've just noticed right off the top. It sounds pretty good. I mean, you hear the supercharger, you hear that power through the Acropavic exhaust, and it's pretty good for a car. It doesn't have to be crazy loud like a Mustang, and yet still sounds pretty freaking decent. You know, like, it feels good for a stock car. The exhaust doesn't feel restrictive, and the car just does sound good enough. But the larger issue with this car, outside of the craftsmanship of the interior, really comes down to, and again, I'm holding my reserved thoughts until the final end of this car being broken in and spending some time with it. I do not want to prematurely fault it for how it's not, just because it's not broken in. So I will say, on first glance, there's nothing really iconic about the car. Like, the acceleration is not mind-boggling, not on a straight line anyways, and the turning radius and the turning of the car and the handling of it is nothing iconic either. But again, it could be very early. Even in track mode, I would argue the suspension is way too stiff, and you feel bouncing at every corner, even on a very generic road without even being a tough road, and you still get that bouncy feel, which you never got in the Ford GT, so I don't really know why you feel it so much on this one. Now, I will say, as always, look at this back suspension. Every time you're playing with the car, you get to see the suspension in action, surrounded by a ton of weird carbon fiber and extra plastic. But yet, this is a pretty interesting dynamic to look back in the rear view and see a whole bunch of suspension components sitting there. I will say, though, again, like, the shifting is not iconic. It almost feels like it drives better as an automatic than as a manual, which I hate, because I really, really like to drive manual, and I'm not very excited to drive a car like this as an automatic. I feel like the car should never have to override you. And the shifting paddles feel good, but the shifting speed is a little bit slower than I'd like it to be. And I'll have to wait to see, again, once we get this car broken in, where or what changes specifically on the high or low side to see where we end up. The interior buttons are all plastic, so the feeling, you really feel like you're driving a $75,000 Mustang. Like there is nothing about this that screams 500K on the inside. Even the suspension shit, I mean, I'd rather put a picture back there and look at the same thing than spend 400 grand on that. So I really don't get it. So it really comes down to performance, and it's very hard to gauge this early in the game. One very simple thing that I can tell you, because the GT3 RS to me is a huge piece of shit. There's many reasons outside of the car. I just didn't think it was fun. And fun is so important in cars these days, because every car is just not that much fun anymore. So active aero and all that crap, you have it on all these cars, so this is not a question of this or that. But you have something else here that I think is just really, really different than the GT3. You have a really good exhaust note at low RPMs, and then, but it really doesn't have that much power again, because I think it's being broken in. There's really no power at all, but I'm gonna reserve that. But I can tell you that the lower RPM city driving, way, way more fun than a GT3 RS, way more fun. Feeling, owning this car does not feel special. Now, I can tell you, it looks very special from the outside. It does not feel special at all on the inside. The steering wheel is honestly too big, and it doesn't have this like very exciting vibe or feel to it. It's too thick. The buttons are clustered and unnecessary, similar to, it's not as bad as a 4GT, like a modern 4GT, but just, I don't think it was necessary for a track car. So again, I don't know, but I guess, you know, time will tell how I feel about it once I actually break it down. But even, you see, like going around the turn, you feel the bumps. It's just not like, it's just not that great. Like, it's just not like that planted as a GT3 RS was. And again, very early, we'll do another review in full and see how we feel about it. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the GTT's first impressions and first drive. Full disclaimer, as I've said before, in case you missed it, this car is not broken and it has 40 miles. I've been told 100 times that until it has 500 miles or so, we really won't get the gauge, not even 80% of the car's performance. So it does not make sense to gauge it earlier, but I've never had a car with more requests from Instagram on what is the drive like? What is it like at first glance? Should I order one or not? So stay tuned in a month or so when we do the second full-time driving review, and then I'll do another review on a track for you guys to give you the full 411 on this car, because so few people, I think, will really have a chance to review this honestly, because they'll be afraid they won't get their next Ford GT allocation. You guys know me, I don't give a shit. If Ford wants to call me and buy this back, they can buy it back. I don't really care. I'm all about, you know, the truth when it comes to these car reviews, and I don't really give a shit on any basis, like who is what or has what. For me, it's all about this. Can it work? How does it work? And is it worth the money? So there you have it. We'll catch you next time on Exotic Car Hacks. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to make sure you're notified when I drop the next review. I'll catch you next time on Exotic Car Hacks.